The morning my granddaughter was supposed to get married, Dolores woke me up at 5:30 by shaking my shoulder hard enough to rattle my teeth. "Get up," she whispered. "Get dressed. Dark clothes. We need to leave before he wakes up." I grabbed her wrist. "What are you talking about?" Dolores had been with our family for 20 years. She'd cooked every Thanksgiving dinner, ironed my late husband's shirts, held my hand through the worst night of my life when Frank collapsed in his office 4 years ago. Dolores didn't panic. Dolores didn't whisper. But right now, her eyes were wide and urgent in the gray pre-dawn light. Her hands were trembling. "It's about Nathan," she said. "About who Claire is marrying today. I found something 3 weeks ago, and I've been praying I was wrong. But I'm not wrong, Mrs. Ashford. And if we don't move now, your granddaughter will make the biggest mistake of her life before noon." Nathan Price, my granddaughter's fiancé. Handsome, polished, a financial consultant who'd swept Claire off her feet at a charity gala 18 months ago. He'd charmed everyone, me included. Frank's voice echoed in my memory. "The ones who charm everyone are the ones you watch closest, Vivian." I threw off the covers. "Give me 5 minutes." We took Dolores's old Honda instead of my car because Nathan knew the sound of my engine. I sat in the passenger seat watching Savannah's historic district slide past in early morning shadows, oak trees draped with Spanish moss, cobblestone streets still wet from overnight rain. "Where are we going?" I asked. Dolores kept her eyes on the road. "Patterson Street. Near the south side." I frowned. I knew Savannah like the back of my hand. Patterson Street was 20 minutes from the historic district, past the commercial zone, into a neighborhood of small houses and chain-link fences. Not the kind of place Nathan Price, who wore $200 ties and talked about his condo in Midtown Atlanta, would have any reason to visit. "Every Tuesday night for the past 2 months, Dolores said, reading my silence. "He leaves the house around 9, says he's going to the gym or meeting a client." I noticed because he always takes the back hallway past the kitchen. 3 weeks ago, I followed him. My stomach dropped. "You followed him?" "I had a feeling, Mrs. Ashford. The same feeling you've had. Don't pretend you haven't." She was right. I had felt it. That low hum of wrongness whenever Nathan smiled too perfectly, answered too smoothly, deflected too gracefully. But I'd pushed it down because Claire was happy. Because Claire had been so lost after her grandfather died, and Nathan seemed to bring her back to life. Because I didn't want to be the suspicious old woman who ruined her granddaughter's joy. "What did you find?" I asked quietly. Dolores pulled the car to the curb 3 houses down from a small yellow bungalow with a chain-link fence and a plastic tricycle in the yard. "That," she said, pointing. We sat, waited. The sun crept up, painting everything gold. At 6:15, the front door of the yellow bungalow opened. Nathan Price walked out. He wore sweatpants and a wrinkled t-shirt, nothing like the polished man who'd be standing at the altar in 6 hours. His hair was messy. He was carrying a coffee mug. Behind him, a woman appeared. Late 20s, dark hair pulled back, tired eyes but pretty. She wore a bathrobe. She leaned against the doorframe and said something I couldn't hear. Nathan turned back, cupped her face with one hand, and kissed her. Not a quick kiss. Not a friendly kiss. The kind of kiss that belongs to people who've been doing it for years. "Who is she?" I whispered. "Her name is Megan Holt," Dolores said. I looked her up. County records show a marriage license. Nathan Price and Megan Holt. Married 6 years ago in Chatham County. 6 years, my vision blurred. Claire had known him for 18 months. He'd proposed after 10, and the entire time, he'd been married. A small figure appeared in the doorway. A boy, maybe 6 years old, sandy hair sticking up in every direction, still in pajamas with dinosaurs on them. He squeezed past the woman and wrapped his arms around Nathan's legs. Nathan ruffled the boy's hair, crouched down, said something that made the child giggle. "His name is Caleb," Dolores said softly. "Their son." I pressed my hand over my mouth. I couldn't breathe. My granddaughter was marrying a man who already had a wife, who already had a child, who went home to them every Tuesday night while Claire planned table settings and rehearsed vows. Nathan straightened, kissed the woman once more, then walked to a gray sedan parked down the street. Not the BMW he drove to our house. A different car, a different life. He pulled away without looking back. The woman watched him go, then guided the boy inside and closed the door. "There's more," Dolores said. She reached into the back seat and handed me a folder. Inside, I found printed county records showing the marriage certificate, photographs Dolores had taken over 3 weeks, Nathan entering the house, Nathan leaving, the woman grocery shopping with the boy. Bank statements Dolores had found in Nathan's jacket pocket when she was doing laundry, showing regular payments to an address on Whitaker Street. And a printout of text messages from Nathan's phone that he'd left unlocked on the kitchen counter one night. Dolores had photographed the screen. One thread was with someone named Ray Colvin. Nathan had written, "Once I'm in, I'll have access to the trust. The Ashford estate is worth 8 figures. Give me 6 months after the wedding and I'll wire you everything I owe. Just keep Megan quiet until then." Ray Colvin had replied, "Clock's ticking, Nate. You miss this deadline and I take the house. Your wife and kid are on the street, or worse." I read it twice. 3 times. The words wouldn't change. Nathan owed money to someone dangerous. He was marrying Claire to access Frank's estate, the hotels, the properties, the investment trust Frank had spent 40 years building. Everything my husband had left for our family. Everything Claire would inherit. Nathan wasn't in love with my granddaughter. He was executing a business plan, and his real wife and son were hostages to his debt. "How long have you known?" I asked Dolores, my voice barely audible. 3 weeks. I wanted to be sure. I didn't want to come to you with suspicion. I came with proof. I looked at her. This woman who'd spent 20 years feeding our family, who'd held Frank's hand when the paramedics worked on him, who'd taught Claire to make biscuits when she was 9. "Frank would thank you," I said. Dolores's eyes glistened. "Mr. Frank told me once, 'Dolores, if anything ever happens to me, you watch over my girls.' I've been watching." I closed the folder. My hands had stopped shaking. Something cold and certain had settled in my chest, the same feeling I'd had when I took over Frank's business after his death, when everyone said a 61-year-old widow couldn't run a hotel empire. I'd proven them wrong then. I would protect my granddaughter now. "Take me to that house," I said. "I need to talk to his wife." Megan Holt opened the door on the second knock, still in her bathrobe, coffee cup in hand. Caleb was behind her eating cereal at a small kitchen table, cartoon sounds drifting from a tablet propped against a napkin holder. She looked at me with confusion that slowly shifted to fear. "Can I help you? My name is Vivian Ashford. My granddaughter Claire is engaged to your husband." The coffee cup started to shake. Megan set it down carefully on a table by the door. Her face went white. "I think we should talk," I said. She let me in without a word. The house was small but clean, toys organized in bins, framed drawings by Caleb on the refrigerator. A family portrait on the bookshelf, Nathan, Megan, and Caleb, all smiling. Taken maybe 2 years ago based on the boy's size. A real family, a real life. While my granddaughter planned a wedding to a ghost, Megan sat across from me at the kitchen table. Caleb glanced up, smiled at me with a gap-toothed grin, then went back to his cereal. "You know," Megan said quietly, "it wasn't a question. I know everything. The marriage, Caleb, the debt to Ray Colvin." Megan's composure cracked. Tears spilled silently. He said it was the only way. Ray loaned us money when Nathan lost his job 3 years ago. Medical bills from when Caleb was sick, then Nathan tried to invest what was left, and it all went wrong. Ray isn't a banker. She trailed off. "I understand," I said. "Ray threatened your family. He said if Nathan didn't pay by the end of this year, he'd make us disappear. Both of us. Me and Caleb." She looked at her son. "Nathan found out about your family at some networking event. Researched the Ashford estate. Said if he could marry into it, he'd have access to enough money to pay Ray off and get us out. 1 year. A quiet divorce. And we'd vanish to another state. And you agreed to this." Megan's face twisted with shame. "I agreed to keep my son alive, Mrs. Ashford. You can judge me for that. I judge myself every day." I looked at Caleb, happily crunching cereal, humming along with his cartoon. completely unaware that his father was about to commit fraud, that his mother cried herself to sleep, that a man named Ray Colvin had put a price on their safety. "I'm not here to judge you," I said. "I'm here to stop a wedding, and I need your help." Megan stared at me. "What do you want me to do?" "I want you to come to the church. Bring Caleb. Bring your marriage certificate, your family photographs, everything you have. My granddaughter deserves to know the truth, and she needs to hear it in a way that Nathan can't talk his way out of. If Nathan finds out I helped you, if Ray finds out, I'm handling Ray Colvin," I said with more confidence than I felt. "And Nathan won't be able to hurt anyone after today." Dolores had been standing by the door. She stepped forward. "Mrs. Holt, I've already contacted someone, a private security consultant Mr. Frank used to work with. He's aware of Ray Colvin. He's coordinating with Savannah PD as we speak." Megan looked between us, tears still falling, hands gripping the edge of the table. Then she looked at Caleb. "For him," she whispered. "For my son. I'll do it." I reached across the table and took her hand. "You're not the villain in this story, Megan. Neither is Caleb. We're going to get you both safe. But right now, I need you to trust me." She nodded slowly. We exchanged phone numbers. I told her exactly when and where to arrive at the church. Back entrance. Wait for my signal. Bring everything. As Dolores drove me home, the morning sun now fully up, I sat in silence, running through the plan. The ceremony was at 1. Guests would arrive by 12:30. I had 6 hours to get ready, act normal, smile at everyone, hug my granddaughter, tell her she looked beautiful, and then destroy her happiness to save her future. Frank's photograph sat on my nightstand. I touched the glass. "I need your strength today," I whispered. "All of it." I walked into our house at 7:45, showered, and dressed in the sage green gown I'd chosen weeks ago. By 9, the house was alive with activity. The caterer was setting up for the reception in the garden. Claire's bridesmaids were upstairs doing hair and makeup, their laughter floating down the staircase. Nathan and his groomsmen had left early for the church, which gave me a small window of relief. When I climbed the stairs to Claire's room, my breath caught. She stood in front of a full-length mirror in her wedding dress, a simple ivory gown with delicate lace sleeves, Frank's mother's pearl earrings. Her auburn hair swept up. She looked like an angel. She saw me in the mirror and her eyes filled with tears. "Grandma." She turned, hands pressed to her chest. "I'm actually doing this." I crossed the room and took her face in my hands the way I'd done since she was a little girl. "You look absolutely stunning, sweetheart. I wish Grandpa was here." "He is," I said, and my voice cracked, not from the sentimentality of the moment, but from the weight of what I carried. "Grandma, are you okay? You look." "Just emotional," I said quickly. "My only granddaughter getting married. Allow me some tears." She laughed, hugged me, and I held on maybe a beat too long. She pulled back. "Nathan is the best thing that ever happened to me, Grandma. After Grandpa died, I thought happiness was over. But Nathan brought me back. Every word was a knife." "I know, sweetheart. He reminds me of Grandpa sometimes. That same quiet confidence. That same way of making you feel like you're the only person in the room. No. Nathan was nothing like Frank. Frank had been genuine. Nathan was a performance. But Claire couldn't see that. Love had made her blind the way it makes everyone blind. "Claire, I need you to know something." She tilted her head, curious. "Whatever happens today, everything I do is because I love you more than anything in this world." She frowned slightly. "That's a strange thing to say on my wedding day, Grandma." "Humor an old woman," I said, and kissed her forehead. "I'll see you at the church." I left the room before my composure shattered. The Cathedral of St. John the Baptist rose against Savannah's skyline, all Gothic spires and arched windows. By 12:30, 200 guests filled the pews. Frank's business partners, Claire's college friends, Nathan's people, whoever they actually were. The flowers were white peonies and gardenias. Afternoon light poured through stained glass, throwing patterns of gold and blue across the marble floor. It was perfect, everything a wedding should be. I sat in the front row, hands folded in my lap. Dolores stood near the side entrance, nearly invisible unless you knew to look for her. She caught my eye and gave a small nod. Megan was in position. At 12:55, Nathan took his place at the altar. He looked impeccable. Gray suit, perfectly knotted tie, easy smile. He shook hands with Reverend Marshall, clapped his best man on the shoulder, scanned the crowd with the warm confidence of a man who had everything figured out. His eyes found mine. He smiled. I smiled back. At 1 o'clock, the organ played. The doors opened. Claire appeared on the arm of her father, my son David, who'd flown in from Seattle. David looked proud, emotional, completely unaware. Claire floated down the aisle. Every guest rose. Whispers of how beautiful she was rippled through the crowd. Nathan's face transformed into something that looked remarkably like genuine emotion. Tears glistened in his eyes. His hand went to his heart. He was good. If I hadn't seen him kiss Megan 6 hours ago, if I didn't have a folder of evidence in my purse, I would have believed every tear. Claire reached the altar. David placed her hand in Nathan's, stepped back, sat beside me. "She's so happy, Mom," David whispered. I squeezed his hand and said nothing. Reverend Marshall began. "Dearly beloved," the traditional words, the sacred ceremony. I barely heard them. I was counting minutes, watching Dolores, watching the side entrance. My phone buzzed once in my purse. I glanced down. Dolores's text, "Ready when you are." Reverend Marshall spoke about trust, honesty, the sacred bond of marriage. The irony was suffocating. Nathan held Claire's hands, looking at her like she was the sun. Claire beamed back, radiant and trusting, completely given over to this moment. Then Reverend Marshall cleared his throat. He spoke the words I'd been waiting for. "If anyone present knows a reason why these two should not be joined in holy matrimony, speak now or forever hold your peace." 3 seconds of silence. 4. Nathan's shoulders relaxed slightly. Claire squeezed his hands tighter. I stood. The sound of my movement cracked through the silence like a gunshot. Every head turned. I object. Gasps erupted. A wave of shock rippled through 200 people. David grabbed my arm. "Mom, what are you doing?" Claire spun around, face white. "Grandma?" Nathan's composure flickered. Just for a moment, something flashed in his eyes. Not confusion, but fear. He recovered quickly. "Mrs. Ashford, this really isn't the time for. This wedding cannot take place," I said, my voice carrying to every corner of the cathedral. I walked toward the altar. Each step measured. My heels clicked against marble. "I'm sorry to everyone here. I'm sorry to my granddaughter most of all. But the man standing at that altar is not who he says he is." Claire's voice shook. "Grandma, stop! What are you talking about? You're embarrassing me." David stood, bewildered. "Mom, sit down. What's gotten into you?" Nathan stepped forward, hands raised in a calming gesture. "Mrs. Ashford, I don't know what's happening, but maybe we should discuss this privately." "There's nothing to discuss privately." My voice didn't waver. "You're already married, Nathan." The cathedral exploded. Gasps, whispered shouts, chairs scraping. Claire staggered backward. "What? No, that's insane. Grandma, that's not true." Nathan's mask held, but barely. A vein pulsed in his temple. "That's completely false. I don't know where she's getting this from. Claire, look at me. I love you." "This is crazy." "Then explain this." I pulled the marriage certificate from my purse and held it up. Nathan Price and Megan Holt. Married 6 years ago right here in Chatham County. Filed at the county clerk's office. I verified it myself. The whispers became a roar. Nathan's face went gray. That's a forgery. Someone is trying to sabotage us. Claire, please, you have to believe me." Claire looked between us, tears streaming, desperately wanting to believe him. "Grandma, where did you get that? How could you do this to me? I didn't do this to you, sweetheart." He did. I turned toward the side entrance and nodded to Dolores. The door opened. Megan walked in holding Caleb's hand. She wore a simple blue dress, her face pale but resolute. Caleb looked around the cathedral with wide eyes, awed by the flowers and the high ceilings and the hundreds of people staring at him. Then he saw Nathan. "Daddy?" Caleb's voice rang through the cathedral, pure and joyful. He broke free from Megan's hand and ran down the side aisle, sneakers squeaking on marble, arms outstretched. "Daddy, Daddy, I missed you!" The cathedral went absolutely silent. 200 people held their breath. Claire's face crumbled. She looked at Nathan, then at the little boy running toward him, then back at Nathan. Her voice came out as barely a whisper. "Nathan?" Nathan didn't move. He stood frozen at the altar, watching his son run toward him, watching his two lives collide in the most public way possible. Caleb reached him and wrapped his arms around Nathan's legs, looking up with that gap-toothed grin. "Daddy, why are you wearing a fancy suit? Are you going to a party?" Nathan's hands hung at his sides. He didn't touch the boy. He didn't speak. Megan reached the front of the cathedral. She stopped a few feet from the altar, chin lifted, voice steady despite the tears on her face. "My name is Megan Holt Price. Nathan and I have been married for 6 years. Caleb is our son. He's 6 years old." She looked at Claire with genuine sympathy. "I'm so sorry. I didn't want it to come to this." Claire's legs gave out. David caught her, holding her up. "No," Claire whispered. "No, no, no." She looked at Nathan, begging. "Tell me she's lying. Tell me the little boy isn't yours. Tell me something, Nathan." Nathan finally moved. He looked at Claire, then at Megan, then at Caleb still clinging to his legs, then at the 200 witnesses to his destruction. "I can explain," he said, and his voice broke. "Don't." My granddaughter's voice came out stronger than I expected, sharper. "Don't you dare explain. Just answer me one thing." She stepped closer, tears falling, but her spine straight. "Was any of it real? Did you ever love me? Even once? Or was I just a way to get to my grandfather's money?" Nathan opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. The silence lasted 10 seconds. 20. Claire nodded slowly, her face hardening into something that looked heartbreakingly like her grandfather's expression when he'd been betrayed in business. "That's what I thought." She turned to me, voice raw but firm. "How did you know?" "Dolores," I said simply. Claire looked past me to where Dolores stood near the entrance, hands clasped, tears running down her face. 20 years of loyalty concentrated in one devastating morning of truth. "I owe everything to her," I said. "She found the proof. She drove me to his other home this morning. She contacted the authorities." As if on cue, 2 officers appeared at the main entrance, walking calmly down the center aisle. Nathan saw them and his face went from gray to white. "Nathan Price," the first officer said, "we have a warrant for your arrest on charges of marriage fraud, bigamy, and conspiracy to commit financial fraud." "No," Nathan said, backing up. "You can't." "I didn't. I was trying to protect my family." "Sir, please don't make this difficult." They approached the altar. Caleb, sensing something wrong, pressed closer to Nathan's legs. "Daddy, what's happening? Who are those people?" Megan rushed forward, scooping Caleb into her arms. "It's okay, baby. Daddy just needs to talk to some people." Nathan's eyes met mine as the officers guided his hands behind his back. The click of handcuffs echoed in the silent cathedral. "I did it for them," Nathan said, his voice cracking. "For Megan and Caleb. Ray was going to take everything. He was going to take my son." "You could have gone to the police," I said quietly. "You could have asked for help. Instead, you chose to prey on a young woman's grief and trust. You studied our family. You targeted my granddaughter. You planned to steal everything my husband spent his life building. Ray Colvin is already in custody," the second officer added. "He was apprehended this morning. Attempted extortion and criminal threats. Your family is safe, Mr. Price. But that doesn't change what you've done." Nathan was led down the aisle, past 200 silent guests, his expensive suit and perfect tie now grotesquely out of place. At the door, he looked back once at Megan holding Caleb, at Claire supported by David, at me standing at the altar of a wedding that would never happen. Then the doors closed behind him. Caleb's small voice broke the silence. "Mommy, when is Daddy coming back?" Megan pressed her face into his hair. "Soon, baby. Soon." The cathedral emptied slowly. Guests filed out in stunned silence. Some stopped to squeeze Claire's hand, others simply stared, unsure what to say. What do you say when you've just watched a wedding turn into an arrest? I sat beside Claire in the front pew. She hadn't moved since Nathan was taken away. Her veil was crooked, her mascara streaked. Her bouquet lay abandoned on the altar steps, white peonies scattered across marble. David sat on her other side, arm around her shoulders, his own face ashen. "I'm such a fool," Claire whispered. "You are not a fool," I said firmly. "You loved someone. That takes courage. He's the one who betrayed that courage. I should have seen it. The signs were there, the phone calls he'd leave the room to take, the Tuesday nights. How he always changed the subject when I asked about his past." She looked at me, eyes red. "You saw it, didn't you, Grandma?" "From the beginning. I chose honesty. I felt something was off, but I didn't trust my own instincts because you were so happy, and I wanted you to be happy more than anything. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Before today? Before I was standing at the altar in front of everyone? Because you wouldn't have believed me," I said gently. "If I'd come to you last week with this, you would have defended him. You would have called it paranoia. You might have cut me off and married him anyway." Claire was quiet for a long moment. Then she let out a sound between a laugh and a sob. "You're right. I absolutely would have. I would have chosen him over you and hated you for trying to save me. That's why it had to be here, in front of everyone, with proof he couldn't deny." She leaned against my shoulder, the way she used to as a little girl when thunderstorms scared her. "Grandpa always said you were the bravest person he ever met. Your grandfather was the brave one. I'm just stubborn." She almost smiled. "Same thing." David's voice came quiet. "Mom, how did Dolores figure it out?" She watched. She paid attention. She followed her instincts when something felt wrong, and she didn't stop until she had the truth. David shook his head slowly. "I owe her everything. We all do." Claire straightened, wiped her face with the back of her hand, smearing mascara further. She stared at the altar where she'd stood minutes ago, ready to promise her life to a stranger. "What do I do now, Grandma?" "Now you heal. You take time. You let the people who actually love you hold you up until you can stand on your own again. Does it get easier?" "It gets different," I said honestly. "When your grandfather died, I thought I'd never breathe again. But I did, and so will you." Claire stood slowly, unsteady in her heels, and looked around the empty cathedral. Light still poured through stained glass. Flowers still perfumed the air. Everything still beautiful. Everything changed. "I want to go home," she said. "Then let's go home." David helped her down the steps. I followed, stopping to pick up the bouquet from the floor. Old habit. Frank used to say, "Never leave beauty lying on the ground, Vivian." At the side entrance, Megan stood with Caleb, uncertain, looking like she wanted to leave but didn't know where to go. Claire saw her and stopped. The two women looked at each other, one in a wedding dress, one in a simple blue dress, both deceived by the same man. "I'm sorry," Megan said, her voice thick. "I know that doesn't mean much right now, but I'm sorry." Claire studied her for a long moment. Then she looked at Caleb, who was playing with a button on his shirt, oblivious. "It's not your fault," Claire said quietly. "Or his." She glanced at me. "Grandma, can we help them? With legal things, or whatever they need?" My heart swelled with something fierce and proud. Even in her worst moment, Claire was her grandfather's granddaughter. "Already taken care of," I said. "Dolores and I have arranged a lawyer for Mrs. Price, and temporary housing if she needs it." Megan's composure finally broke. She pressed her free hand to her mouth, tears falling. "Thank you. You don't have to." "Yes, I do," I said. "None of this was your fault or your son's. Frank always believed you judge people by how they treat the innocent ones caught in the crossfire." Caleb tugged Megan's sleeve. "Mommy, can we get pancakes?" Even Claire laughed. Broken, tearful, but a laugh. "Pancakes sound pretty good right now, actually," Claire said. 4 months later, on a Sunday morning in October, I sat in my kitchen drinking coffee. The garden was turning gold and amber through the windows. Frank's photograph watched from the counter, that familiar half-smile, always slightly amused by the world. Claire walked in, hair still damp from a shower, wearing an old college sweatshirt. She poured herself coffee and sat across from me. "Therapy yesterday was good," she said. "Dr. Patterson says I'm making real progress. I can see that. You look lighter." She smiled. It wasn't the old smile, not yet, but it was real. I started volunteering at the women's shelter downtown, helping people who've been through financial fraud. It feels good, like something useful came out of all this. "Your grandfather would be incredibly proud of you." I know. She sipped her coffee. Nathan's trial is next month. The prosecutor says 5 to 7 years. Bigamy, fraud, conspiracy. She paused. I don't hate him, Grandma. I just feel sad. Sad that he was so desperate he thought destroying someone else's life was his only option. Desperate people make terrible choices. That doesn't excuse what he did, but it's worth understanding. Megan sent me a message last week. She and Caleb are doing well. She got a job at a school near her sister's house in Augusta. Caleb started first grade. Claire's voice softened. He drew me a picture, a house with a big yellow sun and stick figures holding hands. Megan said he calls me the nice lady from the church. My eyes stung. He's a sweet boy. None of it was his fault. She looked at me across the table. Grandma, thank you for having the courage to do what I couldn't, for standing up in front of 200 people and saying what needed to be said. I know it wasn't easy. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, I admitted. Harder than taking over your grandfather's company. Harder than his funeral. Because I knew it would hurt you, and hurting you is the last thing I ever want to do. You didn't hurt me. Nathan hurt me. You saved me. Dolores appeared in the doorway, apron on, wooden spoon in hand. Breakfast is almost ready. Biscuits and gravy, Miss Claire's favorite. Claire stood and hugged Dolores, long and tight. Thank you, Dolores, for watching over us. For keeping your promise to Grandpa. Dolores patted Claire's back, eyes glistening. I told your grandfather I'd take care of his girls. I meant every word. After Claire went to set the table, I sat alone for a moment with Frank's photograph. We did it, I whispered. She's going to be okay. The morning light came through the kitchen window, warm and steady, the way it always did in Savannah in autumn. Frank smiled from the photograph. I smiled back. Some people believe a woman's intuition is just nervousness, overthinking, paranoia. I used to believe that myself. I spent 18 months ignoring mine because I didn't want to cause trouble, didn't want to be the difficult grandmother, didn't want to ruin my granddaughter's happiness with suspicion. That hesitation almost cost Claire everything. If you're listening to this and something in your gut is telling you that someone in your family's life isn't who they claim to be, trust that feeling. Don't wait until they're standing at the altar. Don't wait until the contracts are signed. Don't wait until it's almost too late. And if you're the one who discovers the truth, be brave enough to speak it, even when it costs you, even when the person you love most in this world will hate you for it. Because one moment of painful truth will always be better than a lifetime built on lies. Proverbs 31-25 says, "She is clothed with strength and dignity, and she laughs without fear of the future." That morning, when Dolores shook me awake and told me to get dressed, I wasn't laughing. I was terrified. But I got up, I got dressed, and I did what needed to be done. That's what strength looks like. Not the absence of fear, but the decision to act anyway. If this story spoke to your heart, subscribe to this channel. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe a mother wondering if she should speak up. Maybe a grandmother who sees what no one else wants to see. Leave a comment below and tell me, have you ever had to make a hard choice to protect someone you love? I want to hear your story. Thank you for staying with me until the end. Please note that this narrative includes some creative elements added for storytelling and teaching purposes. Any resemblance to real people or locations is purely coincidental, but the lessons within are very real. God bless you all.